I caught my fiancé's ex-wife spying on us through her kid's watch. Then she showed up at my door to confront me. Now my fiancé refuses to take my side. Yesterday I was in the kitchen hugging my fiancé, enjoying a quiet moment together. He had on these new Christmas slippers, and I jokingly said, "Oh, sexy." We were laughing, just being playful. Then, out of nowhere, I hear a loud voice. "Hello? Hello!" My heart nearly stopped. It wasn't just any voice. It was his ex-wife's. Confused, my fiancé walked over to his child's gizmo watch, which was sitting nearby. He asked her why the watch had picked up, and she casually replied, "It does that automatically." My jaw dropped. Turns out she has full control over the watch because it's on her phone plan. She pays for it, while he covers the older child's phone. Is she really spying on us, or am I just imagining things? Feeling uneasy, I decided to look into it. And sure enough, I found that whoever is the admin of the device can remotely call in and listen to what's happening without anyone knowing. My stomach churned. A little background. This woman hates me. She has zero boundaries. A few months ago, when she came to pick up the kids, I was sitting on my own porch drinking coffee, and she had the audacity to ask my fiancé why I was there. She has walked right past me at my house, said nothing to me or him, and walked straight inside without permission, dragging one of the kids behind her. Her daughter even told me, "My mom doesn't like you," and admitted it's awkward when we're all together because she can feel her mom's hostility toward me. But back to yesterday. After the incident, my fiancé asked his daughter about the watch. She shrugged and said, "Sometimes it rings, sometimes it doesn't, and then mom is just there." My worst fears were confirmed. This wasn't an accident. She was using the feature to eavesdrop on our home. I was livid. I told her point blank that I didn't appreciate her sending a device into my house that lets her listen in on our private moments. Her response? She brushed me off and told me to mind my own business because this was between her and the father of her kids. Excuse me? This is my home. I calmly told her that if it happens again, we're going to have a serious problem. She immediately jumped to playing the victim, accusing me of threatening her. Typical. Here's the kicker. My fiancé seems stuck in the middle. He says he understands my point of view and will ask her about it, but he's convinced she wouldn't actually use the feature. I'm sorry. What? She literally got caught doing it, and her own daughter confirmed it. But knowing him, she'll deny it with a straight face, and he'll just go, "Oh, okay. I'm 50, he's 47. At this point in life, you'd think boundaries would be respected. I've tried to stay away from her to keep the peace, but she makes it impossible. She invades our space, manipulates him, and then plays the victim when called out. So, am I the a-hole for wanting to have a say in this? Their business is their business, but this isn't just about them anymore. It's about my home, my life, and my privacy. Update 1. You'd think that after getting caught spying on us through her kid's watch, she'd back off, right? Wrong. If anything, things have escalated in the most ridiculous, petty, and borderline psychotic way. I didn't even know someone could take a lack of boundaries to this level. So here's where things stand now. My fiancé did bring it up to her. I wasn't there for the conversation, but from what he told me, it went something like this. He casually asked, "Hey, have you been using the watch to listen in on us?" And of course she played dumb. What? No, I don't even know how to do that. Classic gaslighting. He even mentioned that the daughter told us she's done it before, but she turned it around and said, "Kids say all sorts of things. She must be confused." Apparently, he just nodded and let it go because he didn't want to start drama. Let me translate that for you. He didn't want to deal with her tantrum. Meanwhile, I'm left sitting here wondering why my privacy, our privacy, doesn't seem worth standing up for. I even told him, this isn't about drama, it's about respecting boundaries. But he just kept repeating, I don't think she'd actually do that intentionally. Intentionally? She was literally caught mid-spy. The daughter said she's done it before. And what about her attitude when I confronted her? She didn't deny it then. Now let's get to the good part. The day after this conversation, I noticed something strange. I was walking into the living room, and the watch was sitting on the coffee table. Out of curiosity, I picked it up. It wasn't even subtle. The screen lit up, and I saw it actively connected to a call. My blood ran cold. She was listening right then and there. I didn't even say anything. I just walked into the kitchen where my fiancé was, put the watch on the counter in front of him and said, "She's listening right now." He froze. Then, instead of getting angry or taking charge of the situation, he started fumbling with the watch, trying to end the call. I stopped him and said, "Don't you dare hang up. Let her listen." Then I spoke loud and clear. "If you think this is okay, you've lost your mind. You're invading our privacy, and it's disgusting." A few seconds later, the call disconnected. No apology, no explanation, just silence. At this point, I was livid. I told my fiancé, "She's not allowed to send this watch back into our home, period. If you won't set that boundary, I will." He tried to pacify me, saying, "I'll talk to her again." But we both know how that's going to go. Sure enough, he called her that evening, and I could hear the entire conversation because he didn't bother to step out of the room. He started off softly. "Hey, I think there might have been a misunderstanding with the watch." Misunderstanding? Seriously? But before I could say anything, she cut him off and started yelling, "Oh, so now I'm not allowed to contact my child? What kind of control freak is she?" She then started twisting everything, accusing me of being insecure and paranoid. She even said, "It's not like I'm spying on you. I'm just trying to check on my kid. Sorry if that makes her uncomfortable." My fiancé barely got a word in, and by the end of the call, she had somehow made herself the victim again. I didn't let him off the hook this time. I told him, "This isn't just about you or her. This is my home too, and I'm not comfortable living under surveillance because she refuses to let go." He promised to handle it, but honestly, I wasn't holding my breath. And then, a couple of days later, things took an even weirder turn. We were sitting in the living room watching TV when there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and neither was he, so he went to answer it. Guess who was standing there? His ex-wife. She was holding a grocery bag and had the audacity to say, "I brought some things for the kids." Mind you, she didn't text or call ahead. She just showed up unannounced. Here's where it gets worse. She didn't just drop off the bag and leave. No, she invited herself in. She walked right past him into the living room, smiled at me like she was daring me to say something, and sat down on the couch like she lived here. I couldn't believe it. I didn't say a word. I just stared at my fiancé, waiting for him to do something. He looked like a deer in headlights, clearly uncomfortable, but he didn't ask her to leave. She started chatting with the kids, asking about school, completely ignoring me. Finally, I snapped. I stood up and said, "You need to leave, now." She gave me this fake surprised look and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I needed an invitation to see my kids." I shot back, "You do when it's my house." She didn't like that. She turned to my fiancé and said, "Are you seriously going to let her talk to me like this?" And instead of backing me up, he said, "Maybe we should all calm down." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because at that point it was just absurd. Calm down? You're letting her walk all over you, and I'm the one who needs to calm down? She eventually left, but not before muttering something under her breath about how I'm toxic and controlling. I turned to my fiancé and said, "This can't keep happening. If you don't start setting boundaries, I will." He got defensive, saying, "I'm trying to keep the peace for the kids." I told him, peace isn't letting her trample all over us. It's creating clear boundaries so everyone knows their place. He didn't respond. I've started documenting everything. The watch incidents, her showing up unannounced, her behavior in general, because I feel like this is going to blow up sooner or later. I love my fiancé, but his inability to stand up to her is making me question everything. This is supposed to be our home, our safe space, but right now, it feels like she has the keys to it. If he doesn't wake up and realize how unhealthy this is, I don't know how much longer I can take it. So, yeah, that's where we're at. A spying ex-wife, a spineless fiancé, and me stuck in the middle of a situation that feels like it's spiraling out of control. Stay tuned, I guess, because something tells me this isn't over yet. Update 2. If you thought things couldn't get worse, buckle up, because this situation is officially in you can't make this up territory. After the last showdown with the watch and her little unannounced visit, I figured the ex-wife would at least back off for a while. Nope. She's doubled down, and my fiancé is still doing his best impression of a doormat. Let's start with the watch. After her little eavesdropping stunt, I made it crystal clear that it wasn't coming back into our house. I even told my fiancé, if she sends it here again, I'm taking it straight to the trash. He assured me he'd handle it, but clearly he and I have very different definitions of that word. A week later, I was tidying up the kitchen and noticed something shiny on the counter near the fruit bowl. Guess what it was? Yep, the watch. It wasn't supposed to be there, and I knew I didn't put it there. I called out to my fiancé and asked, "Why is this back in the house?" He looked genuinely confused and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. She dropped it off earlier when she picked up the kids." I swear, I felt my blood pressure spike. So she just gave it back after everything that happened, and you didn't say anything? His response? She said it was important for her to stay in touch with the kids, and I didn't want to argue. Are you kidding me? I reminded him, loudly, about her spying on us and how I explicitly said I didn't want the watch here. He shrugged and said, I don't think she'll do it again. She promised. Oh well, in that case, I guess we can all just trust her. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, it went wrong. That evening, the kids were in their rooms, and we were sitting in the living room watching a show. I could feel the watch staring at me from the counter, like some creepy little spy robot. I decided to test something. I walked over, picked it up, and loudly said, "Wow, I wonder what kind of secrets we should talk about tonight." Within seconds, the watch lit up. Someone was calling in. I flipped it over so my fiancé could see the screen. Still think she's not using it? He didn't say a word, just stared at the watch like it had personally betrayed him. I answered the call, put it on speaker, and said, "Hello, ex-wife. Nice of you to join us." She hung up. At this point, I was done being polite. I told my fiancé, if you don't put a stop to this today, I will, and I'm not going to be nice about it. He promised to handle it, again, but I didn't trust him to follow through. So the next day I called the phone company myself. Turns out as long as the device is on her plan, there's nothing we can do to block her from using the features. The only solution? Either take it off her plan or stop letting it into our house. When I told my fiancé this, he actually had the nerve to say, I don't think it's worth upsetting her over. She just wants to stay connected to her kids. Connected? She's not trying to stay connected. She's trying to control everything, including us. But wait, there's more. About a week after the watch incident, I came home from running errands to find the ex-wife in our house again. She wasn't just dropping something off this time. She was sitting at the dining table with the kids, chatting away like she lived here. My fiancé was nowhere to be seen. Where's fiancé? I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. She gave me this smug little smile and said, Oh, he ran to the store. I thought I'd hang out with the kids while he was gone. Hang out? In my house? Without asking? I didn't even respond to her. I just texted my fiancé. Why is she in our house? His reply, she wanted to see the kids. I figured it was fine, and at that point I was ready to scream, but instead I walked up to her and said, You need to leave, now. She acted all offended like I'd just kicked her puppy. Why are you always so hostile toward me? I'm just here for my kids. I looked her dead in the eye and said, This isn't your house, and you don't get to just walk in whenever you feel like it. If you want to see the kids, you can wait outside or coordinate with their father, but you don't get to invade my space. She rolled her eyes and said, Fine, I'll leave. But you really need to work on your attitude. Work on my attitude? When my fiancé got home, I confronted him about letting her in. His excuse? She just wanted to spend time with the kids. I didn't think it was a big deal. I reminded him, again, that she has no respect for boundaries and that this is supposed to be our home, not some revolving door for his ex. His response? I just want to keep the peace. It's like talking to a brick wall. Things hit a breaking point a few days later. I was out on the porch having coffee because apparently that's a crime in her eyes. And she showed up to pick up the kids. Instead of staying in her car like a normal person, she marched up to the porch and said, "Can we talk?" I didn't want to, but I wasn't about to let her control the narrative. I said, "Sure. What do you want?" She started in with this whole victim act, saying she feels like I'm trying to push her out of her kids' lives and make her feel unwelcome. I told her, "I'm not trying to push you out. I'm trying to enforce basic boundaries which you keep ignoring." She snapped back, "They're my kids. I'll do whatever I think is best for them." I lost it. I told her, "You don't get to use your kids as an excuse to disrespect me, invade my home, and spy on us. If you want a co-parent, great. But that doesn't mean you get to treat me like I don't exist or act like this house is yours." She stormed off, muttering something about how I'm insecure and jealous. When I told my fiancé about the conversation, he just sighed and said, "I wish you two could get along." Get along? With someone who thinks it's okay to spy on me and walk into my house uninvited? Sure, let me just bake her some cookies and roll out the welcome mat. I'm starting to realize that this isn't just about her. It's about him too. He's so afraid of rocking the boat with her that he's willing to let her walk all over both of us. And honestly, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep fighting this battle alone. Something's got to give, and soon. I just hope it's not my sanity. Update 3. Things have escalated to the point where I'm questioning my life choices, my sanity, and whether I should just pack up and join a monastery where no one owns a gizmo watch or has an overbearing ex. It's like I'm stuck in some low-budget soap opera, except the drama doesn't end when I turn off the TV. Spoiler, it gets worse. After the last fiasco, I told my fiancé point blank that I was done with the watch nonsense. I told him, "If you don't stand up to her, I will." He looked at me like a deer in headlights, which I've realized is his default response to any form of confrontation. I get it, he's trying to keep the peace. But at what cost? My boundaries? My mental health? Anyway, fast forward to last weekend. The kids were at our house, and I was in the kitchen baking cookies, because apparently I'm a walking sitcom cliché. I heard the telltale ping of the gizmo watch and thought, no way she's trying this again. I walked into the living room where the younger child was sitting on the couch with the watch. Sure enough, it was her. She was on a video call, and before I could say anything, she started grilling her kid about what we were doing. "What's Fiancé doing? What's my name doing? Is she cooking something? What are you watching on TV?" I snapped. I grabbed the watch and said, "If you have questions about what's going on in this house, you can ask your ex. Stop using your kid to spy on us." She actually laughed and said, "I'm just checking on my child. Why are you so paranoid?" Paranoid? Oh, I don't know, maybe because you've literally been caught spying on us before? I handed the watch to my fiancé and told him, "Deal with this, or I'm throwing it in the garbage disposal." He finally had a conversation with her, if you can call it that. She played the victim, of course, claiming she was just being a good mom and that I was blowing things out of proportion. He came back to me and said, she promised to only use the watch for emergencies. And you know what? I actually laughed. Not because I believed her, but because I realized this cycle is never going to end as long as my fiancé keeps enabling her. But wait, there's more. Later that same weekend, the kids were outside playing in the yard when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and guess who was standing there? Yep, the ex-wife, looking as smug as ever. She didn't even bother with pleasantries. She just said, "I need to talk to Fiancé." I told her, "He's busy, what do you need?" She rolled her eyes and said, "It's none of your business. I'll wait." I was about to close the door in her face when my fiancé appeared behind me. He stepped outside with her, leaving me standing there like an idiot. They had a hushed conversation on the porch, and when he came back in, he looked guilty. "What was that about?" I asked. "She wanted to talk about the kids," he said, avoiding eye contact. "About the kids," I repeated. "What specifically?" He hesitated for a second and then admitted, "She's upset because she thinks you're trying to push her out of their lives." "Excuse me?" I told him. "I'm not trying to push her out of anything. She's the one who keeps crossing boundaries. She's the one who spies on us. She's the one who walks into our house without asking. And now I'm the bad guy?" He tried to mediate by saying, "I think she's just feeling insecure. Maybe we could try to make her feel more included." "More included? She's already barging into our lives uninvited." What's next? Giving her a spare key and a guest room. Things came to a head during the kids' pickup the next day. She showed up early, of course, and refused to stay in her car. Instead, she came to the door and started questioning the kids about what they'd done all weekend. She completely ignored me, which is par for the course at this point. But then she did something that left me absolutely floored. She looked at me and said, "I think it would be best if we set some ground rules. For the kids' sake." Oh, I was ready for this. "Ground rules?" I said. "Like what?" She smirked and said, "Well, for starters, I think we should agree that you don't discipline my kids. That's not your place." I couldn't help myself. I laughed. "Discipline? The only thing I've ever disciplined them for is leaving their shoes in the hallway. And if you think that's overstepping, maybe you should teach them to clean up after themselves." She didn't like that. "You're not their mother. You don't get to decide what's appropriate." At this point, I'd had enough. I told her, "You're right, I'm not their mother. But this is my house, and as long as they're here, they'll follow the same rules as everyone else. If you don't like it, feel free to take it up with your ex." She turned to my fiancé, expecting him to back her up. He just stood there, looking like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. She muttered something under her breath, grabbed the kids, and left. After they were gone, I told my fiancé, "This can't keep happening. She's not just disrespecting me, she's disrespecting us. If you don't start setting boundaries, I'm going to start setting them myself." He tried to defend her again, saying, "She's just protective of the kids. You can't blame her for that." I told him, "Being protective doesn't give her the right to treat me like I don't exist. She doesn't respect me. And if you keep letting her walk all over us, she's never going to." He didn't say anything, he just sat there looking defeated. So here we are. I'm at my wit's end, and I don't know what to do. I love my fiancé, but his inability to stand up to her is making me question everything. How can we build a life together when he's so afraid of upsetting her? How can I feel secure in my own home when she treats it like an extension of hers? Something's got to give, and if he's not willing to make a change, I might have to.